I always thought our life was a tapestry, woven with threads of trust and routine, each day a new stitch in the pattern. My wife, Clara, was the artist behind it, her laughter, her quick wit, her way of making our modest Chicago apartment feel like a palace. We'd been married 7 years, our love a quiet rhythm, not flashy but steady. I'm Ethan, a structural engineer, my days spent calculating load-bearing beams, ensuring things don't collapse. Clara, a freelance illustrator, filled our home with sketches, her imagination spilling onto every surface. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, or so I believed. Started with a feeling, a hairline crack in my certainty. Clara's phone buzzed more often, her fingers dancing across the screen with a secrecy I hadn't noticed before. She'd smile, say it was a client, but her eyes darted away, avoiding mine. I'd catch her staring out the window, lost in thoughts she didn't share. At night, she'd slip into bed later, claiming deadlines, her warmth beside me feeling distant. I told myself it was nothing. Marriages ebb and flow, don't they? But the crack widened. One evening, I came home early, arms full of groceries for the dinner she'd planned. The apartment was quiet, her sketchpad abandoned on the table, a half-finished drawing of a man's face I didn't recognize. Not me. The lines were tender, intimate, as if she'd traced his features with longing. My stomach twisted. Her phone lay nearby, unlocked, a rare lapse. I hesitated, my engineer's mind screaming to analyze, to test the structure. I opened her messages. A name, Marcus. A thread of texts, playful at first, then laced with something deeper, something that made my chest tighten. Meet me tomorrow, the last one read. No client, no explanation, just a time and a place, a coffee shop downtown. I stood there, groceries forgotten, the room tilting. Clara wasn't home. She'd said she was meeting a friend, but the lie sat heavy now, a weight I couldn't unfeel. I didn't confront her that night. I cooked the dinner, smiled as she talked about her day, her voice bright but hollow to my ears. I watched her, searching for the woman I knew, but all I saw were secrets. The man in the sketch haunted me. Marcus, I assumed. Who was he? Why him? My mind raced, calculating probabilities, but no equation could solve this. I needed proof, not just a feeling. I needed to see the fracture for myself. The next day, I called in sick, something I never do. I drove to the coffee shop, parking across the street, my hands trembling on the wheel. Clara was there, radiant in a blue dress I'd bought her, laughing with a man. Marcus. He was tall, charismatic, his gestures easy and familiar. They leaned close, her hand brushing his, a gesture so small yet so devastating. I watched, frozen, as my world crumbled, not with a crash but with a quiet, unbearable shift. This wasn't just a meeting. This was something else. Something alive, something that wasn't mine. I drove home, my vision blurred, plotting my next move. The structure of our life was failing, and I needed to know how deep the damage went. The days after the coffee shop were a performance, a tightrope walk over a chasm I couldn't name. Clara moved through our routines with practiced ease, making coffee, sketching, kissing my cheek before bed, but every gesture felt like a mask. I played my part, too, smiling, asking about her day, swallowing the bile that rose when she mentioned friends or errands. My engineer's brain, trained to find flaws in blueprints, now dissected her every word, her every glance. I was living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. Marcus, I learned, was real. A Google search, fueled by sleepless nights, revealed him. Marcus Hale, a photographer whose work Clara had admired online. They'd connected at an art gallery event months ago, an event she'd mentioned casually, omitting his name. His Instagram was a gallery of moody portraits, Clara's face appearing in one, captioned, Muse. The word burned. Muse. Not wife, not partner, but something ethereal, untethered. I cross-referenced dates, piecing together a timeline. Their messages, which I checked whenever her phone was unguarded, showed meetings, lunches, walks, a quick drink that stretched into hours. Each discovery was a nail in the coffin of my trust. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand the why behind the betrayal. Was it love? Boredom? Something I'd failed to give her? I studied our past, searching for clues. Had I been too absorbed in work, too predictable? Our life was comfortable, but maybe comfort wasn't enough for her. Clara had always craved spontaneity, her art a rebellion against structure. I'd loved that about her, but now it felt like a fault line I'd ignored. To test my suspicions, I suggested a weekend getaway, a chance to reconnect. She agreed, her enthusiasm convincing, but her phone never left her side. At the cabin, surrounded by pines and silence, I watched her. She laughed, cooked with me, curled against me at night, but her eyes flickered to her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. One night, I woke to find her texting, her face lit by the glow, a soft smile I hadn't seen in months. I pretended to sleep, my heart hammering. The next morning, I accidentally knocked her phone into the lake during a walk. Her panic was raw, unguarded. A confirmation worse than any text. Back home, I escalated my investigation. I installed an app on my laptop to mirror her new phone's activity, a step that felt like crossing a moral line but was driven by desperation. The messages resumed, more cautious now, but still there. Marcus suggested meeting at his studio, a place I imagined filled with her laughter, her touch. I drove there one afternoon, parking outside, watching through a window as Clara posed for his camera, her movements fluid, intimate. He adjusted her hair, his fingers lingering. She didn't pull away. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, a plan forming. Not confrontation, not yet, but something colder, something that would make her feel the weight of this fracture. I began to catalog everything. Dates, times, photos I took from a distance. My engineer's precision became my weapon, each piece of evidence a brick in the wall I was building. I didn't know what the wall would become, retribution, exposure, or something crueler, but I knew it would be deliberate, unyielding. Clara thought she could live in two worlds, but I'd make sure she faced the collapse of one. For now, I kept smiling, kept playing the husband, while inside, the man she knew was reshaping into something else entirely. Living with Clara became an exercise in precision, like designing a bridge to bear impossible weight. I moved through our days with calculated calm, my smiles engineered, my questions casual but probing. She didn't notice the shift, or if she did, she hid it behind her own performance. Her lies were seamless now, each late meeting or gallery visit, delivered with a warmth that once made me feel safe. Now it was a blade, twisting deeper with every word. But I wasn't the only one building something. Clara was constructing a secret life, and I was determined to map its every contour before I tore it down. My surveillance grew methodical. The app on my laptop revealed more than texts, photos, emails, even Clara's search history. She'd looked up Marcus's past exhibits, his interviews, even his address. She'd saved a playlist he'd sent, songs I'd never heard her hum. Each detail was a splinter, but I collected them, filing them in a locked folder labeled Bridge Specs. A private joke for the collapse I was planning. I followed her twice more, once to a park where they sat on a bench, her head on his shoulder, and once to a bookstore where they browsed, their laughter carrying across the aisles. I photographed it all, my camera a silent witness to her betrayal. The betrayal itself was what made this so strange, so non-standard. It wasn't just physical, though I suspected it had crossed that line. It was emotional, intellectual, a connection that seemed to feed her in ways I never had. Marcus wasn't just a fling. He was her collaborator, her confidant, her escape from the life we'd built. Her sketches now were filled with his influence. Bold lines, darker tones, nothing like the whimsical art she'd made for me. She was creating with him, for him, and I was erased from the canvas. That hurt more than any touch could. I began to test her, subtle experiments to gauge her commitment to this double life. I'd mention Marcus casually, citing an article about his work, watching her face for a flicker. She'd nod, her voice steady, but her fingers tightened around her coffee mug. I left my laptop open once, A fake email from a client mentioning a photography project, baiting her to react. She didn't, but her silence was loud, her eyes lingering on the screen too long. I even suggested we attend one of his gallery openings, my tone innocent. She deflected, claiming a deadline, but her cheeks flushed, a tell I'd learned to read. My nights were sleepless, spent plotting. Revenge wasn't enough. I needed it to be precise, to dismantle her world as surgically as she'd dismantled mine. I considered exposing her to Marcus's circle, but that felt too simple. I thought of confronting them together, but that gave her a stage to explain, to justify. No, it had to be something that left her nowhere to hide, something that mirrored the quiet devastation she'd inflicted. I started researching Marcus more deeply, his clients, his reputation, his vulnerabilities. A plan was forming, not fully clear but taking shape, like a blueprint emerging from sketches. Clara noticed my distance, once asking if I was okay, her hand on mine. I lied, said work was stressful, and she accepted it, relieved. That moment clarified everything. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting her secret. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and added another brick to my wall. The collapse was coming, and I'd make sure it was her world, not mine, that fell. The evidence I gathered became my anchor, a counterweight to the chaos Clara's betrayal had unleashed. Each photo, each screenshot, each timestamped note was a girder in the structure of my resolve. My apartment, once a home, now felt like a laboratory where I tested theories about her deceit. I'd sit at my desk, the city's hum outside my window, and review my findings like an engineer inspecting a failing bridge. The data was undeniable. Clara was living a parallel life, and Marcus was its center. But knowing wasn't enough. I needed to understand the depth of her choice, and I needed to craft a response that matched its cruelty. I expanded my surveillance, driven by a need to see the full scope of her world with Marcus. I hacked into her cloud storage, another line I crossed without hesitation, finding folders of photos from their outings. Clara laughing in a museum, Marcus's arm around her. Clara sketching in his studio, her face soft with focus. One image stopped me cold. Them at a lake, her in the blue dress, his hand on her waist, their reflections rippling together. It was intimate, deliberate, a moment she'd chosen to capture and keep. I saved it, my hands shaking, not with rage but with a cold clarity. This wasn't a mistake. It was a life she'd built without me. Her behavior at home grew bolder, as if my silence gave her confidence. She'd hum Marcus's playlist while cooking, unaware I recognized the songs. She'd leave her sketchpad open, his face recurring in her art, each stroke a confession. I mirrored her boldness with my own secrecy, installing a GPS tracker on her car. It confirmed what I suspected. Frequent trips to Marcus's studio, late-night drives to places we'd never gone together. One night, I followed her to a rooftop bar, watching from a distance as they danced. Her body pressed to his, her laughter cutting through the crowd. I didn't feel jealousy anymore, just a hollow determination. I began to study Marcus's life with the same precision. His photography business was thriving, built on a reputation for authenticity. He had a tight-knit circle of artist friends, a loyal client base, and a public persona that radiated charm. But I found cracks. A few disgruntled clients, a lawsuit from years ago, a tendency to overshare online. I cataloged these two, sensing they'd be useful. My plan was still vague, but I knew it would target what mattered most to them: her art, his career, their shared world. I wanted them to feel the same erasure I did, to wake up one day and find their foundation gone. Clara's lies grew careless. She'd mention a group hangout, but post a photo with only Marcus tagged. She'd claim exhaustion but return home glowing, her hair carrying a faint scent of his cologne. I stopped pretending to be oblivious, dropping hints to unsettle her. Saw a great photo exhibit ad today. I'd say, watching her tense, maybe we should check it out. She'd change the subject, her smile strained. I relished these moments, small victories in a battle she didn't know we were fighting. My revenge was taking shape, inspired by the very art she loved. It wouldn't be loud or violent. It would be a masterpiece of exposure, a gallery of their betrayal displayed for all to see. I started sketching my own plan, not on paper but in my mind, each detail a brushstroke. Clara thought she could paint a new life without me, but I'd show her how fragile her canvas was. And Marcus? He'd learn what it meant to steal from a man who builds for a living. The moment I decided to act wasn't dramatic. No thunderclap, no sudden epiphany. It was quiet, like the click of a lock sealing a vault. I was reviewing my evidence late one night, Clara asleep in the next room, her breathing soft but no longer comforting. My screen glowed with a photo of her and Marcus at an art fair, her hand in his, their smiles a private language. I zoomed in, studying her face, searching for the woman I'd married. She wasn't there. In her place was someone who'd chosen a life that excluded me, and that clarity shifted something inside. I wasn't just gathering data anymore, I was ready to build the collapse. My plan crystallized around their shared passion. Art. Clara's illustrations and Marcus's photography were their bond, their currency in the world they'd created. I'd turn that against them, not by destroying their work but by exposing its foundation, their betrayal, to the audience they valued most. Marcus's next gallery opening was in 2 weeks, a high-profile event with Chicago's art elite. Clara had mentioned it in passing, assuming I'd never attend. That was my stage. I'd create an exhibit of my own, one that revealed their secret in a way they couldn't deny or escape. I began crafting my installation. Using my evidence, I compiled a digital slideshow, photos of them together, screenshots of their texts, even scans of Clara's sketches of Marcus. I paired each image with captions, clinical and precise, like an engineer's report. Date: March 12th. Location: Millennium Park. Context: unauthorized meeting. I included audio clips from voicemails Clara had left Marcus, her voice warm and unguarded. Words she'd never spoken to me in years. The slideshow was devastating but restrained, a mirror held up to their deceit. I'd project it during the gallery opening, hijacking Marcus's moment to display their truth. To execute this, I needed access. I contacted the gallery under a pseudonym, posing as a tech consultant offering to upgrade their projection system for free. The manager, overworked and underfunded, agreed without much scrutiny. I spent nights at the gallery, installing my software, ensuring the slideshow would override Marcus's presentation seamlessly. Each visit felt like laying a wire in a trap, my hands steady despite the weight of what I was doing. I wasn't just betraying Clara's trust. I was dismantling her world with the same care she'd taken to build it. At home, I kept up the facade, but my detachment grew. Clara sensed it, her questions sharper now. "You seem off, Ethan. Is something wrong?" I'd shrug, say I was tired, my eyes meeting hers just long enough to make her squirm. She doubled down on her affection, cooking my favorite meals, suggesting movie nights, but it felt like a performance to soothe her own guilt. I let her try, knowing each gesture was a thread I'd soon unravel. One night, she caught me staring at her sketchpad, Marcus's face half-drawn. "Just a study," she said too quickly. I nodded, my silence a warning she didn't hear. As the gallery opening approached, I felt a strange calm. My revenge wasn't about rage. It was about justice, about making Clara and Marcus face the consequences of their choices. I imagined their faces when the slideshow played, the crowd's whispers, the collapse of their carefully curated lives. For the first time in months, I slept soundly, dreaming of a bridge falling, not with a crash but with a slow, inevitable slide. The opening was days away, and I was ready to pull the pin. The gallery opening was 3 days away, and my plan was a machine now, its gears polished and ready. I'd spent weeks building it, each piece of evidence a component in a structure designed to collapse Clara and Marcus's world. The slideshow was complete, a 90-second loop of their betrayal, photos, texts, audio clips, and Clara's sketches, all sequenced for maximum impact. I'd embedded it in the gallery's projection system, set to interrupt Marcus's presentation with a single remote command from my phone. My engineer's mind reveled in the precision, but my heart, whatever was left of it, felt heavier with each step. I tested the system one last time, slipping into the gallery after hours with a spare key I'd borrowed during my tech consultant ruse. The space was quiet, filled with Marcus's framed photos, each one a testament to his talent. Clara's influence was everywhere. Her bold lines echoed in his compositions, a collaboration I hadn't seen until now. It stung, realizing how deeply she'd woven herself into his work. I stood before a portrait of her eyes alive in a way they hadn't been with me in years. I didn't hate her, not exactly. I hated the version of myself who'd failed to notice her drift. At home, Clara was a paradox. Affectionate yet distant, as if sensing the ground shifting beneath her. She'd started leaving her phone locked, her sketchpad hidden, but my surveillance was too advanced for her countermeasures. The GPS tracker showed her at Marcus's studio almost daily now, their meetings longer, more urgent. I didn't follow her anymore. I didn't need to. My folder of evidence was a vault, and I was done adding to it. Instead, I focused on the aftermath, imagining her face when the slideshow played, the crowd's gasps, Marcus's career crumbling under the weight of their exposed secret. I prepared a secondary layer to my plan, a failsafe to ensure the damage lingered. I'd created anonymous social media accounts, ready to share snippets of the slideshow online after the gallery event. Not the full thing, just enough to spark whispers in Chicago's art scene, enough to taint Marcus's reputation and Clara's credibility. I'd also drafted an email to Marcus's key clients, and signed, hinting at his unprofessional conduct. It wasn't personal, it was structural. I was dismantling the foundation of their shared world, brick by brick. Clara noticed my late nights, my excuses about work. "You're always so busy," she said one evening, her tone probing. I smiled, said I was chasing a promotion, and she let it drop, but her eyes lingered, searching for cracks in my facade. I almost pitied her, playing a game she didn't know was rigged. That night, she reached for me, her touch tentative, as if trying to anchor us to something real. I reciprocated, but it was mechanical, my mind on the gallery, on the moment her world would fracture. She fell asleep in my arms, unaware I was counting down to her ruin. The night before the opening, I rehearsed my role. I'd attend as Clara's husband, not a saboteur, my face a mask of support. I'd watch her mingle, laugh, play the part of Marcus's collaborator, and then I'd press the button. The slideshow would run, and I'd be there, silent, as the truth did its work. I wasn't nervous, just ready. The machine was built, and all it needed was the spark. The day before the gallery opening, Chicago hummed with a restless energy, as if the city knew what was coming. I woke early, Clara still asleep, her face soft in a way that almost made me falter. Almost. I made coffee, left a mug on her nightstand, a gesture of normalcy that felt like laying the final stone in a trap. She stirred, smiled, thanked me, and I nodded, my mind already at the gallery, visualizing the projector's hum, the crowd's shock. Today was for final checks, for ensuring no detail was overlooked. I drove to the gallery mid-morning, posing as the tech consultant one last time. The manager was distracted, fussing over catering, so I slipped into the projection booth unnoticed. I ran a diagnostic, confirming the slideshow was queued, the override seamless. I tested the remote trigger from my phone, perfect. Standing in the empty gallery, surrounded by Marcus's photos, I felt a strange detachment. This wasn't about Clara or Marcus anymore. It was about justice, about balancing the scales. I'd been erased from her life, and now I'd erased their illusion. Back home, Clara was in high spirits, sketching furiously, preparing for the opening. She'd been invited as Marcus's collaborator, a fact she'd downplayed to me but celebrated in texts to him. "Our night," she'd written, a phrase that burned. I watched her pack a dress, the same blue one from the lake photo, and I felt a flicker of something, grief, maybe, for the life we'd had. But grief was a luxury I couldn't afford. I complimented her work, asked about her role at the event, my tone light. She deflected, saying it was just a small thing. But her excitement betrayed her. I let her lie, adding it to my ledger. That afternoon, I finalized the social media accounts. I'd chosen platforms popular with Chicago's art crowd, ensuring the posts would spread like wildfire. I uploaded a teaser image, a blurred shot of Clara and Marcus, captioned, "Art imitates life, but what's the cost?" It wouldn't go live until after the slideshow, but the groundwork was set. I also prepared the client emails, scheduling them to send the next morning. Marcus's reputation would take a hit, and Clara's freelance career would falter under the scrutiny. It was surgical, not chaotic, a controlled demolition. Clara left for a meeting that evening, her car's GPS confirming Marcus's studio. I didn't follow. Instead, I sat at my desk, reviewing the slideshow one last time. Each image was a wound, but I'd grown numb to them. I added a final slide. A photo of our wedding day, Clara radiant, me smiling with the caption, "What was promised, what was broken." It wasn't sentimental. It was a reminder of the stakes, a signature on my work. I saved it, locked my laptop, and poured a whiskey, the first I'd allowed myself in weeks. When Clara returned, she was radiant, humming, her energy a stark contrast to my stillness. She kissed my cheek, said she was nervous about the opening, and I nodded, playing the supportive husband. "You'll be great," I said, my voice steady. She didn't notice the edge, didn't see the man who'd spent months building her downfall. As we went to bed, her hand on my arm, I felt the weight of tomorrow. The opening wasn't just an event. It was the moment I'd reclaim my life, even if it meant burning hers to the ground. I closed my eyes, the slideshow playing in my mind, and waited for dawn. The gallery opening arrived like a storm I'd summoned. Clara was a whirlwind, her excitement palpable as she dressed in the blue gown, her hair swept up, her laughter bright. I watched her, my face a mask of pride, while inside, my pulse was a metronome counting down to the reveal. "You look stunning," I said, and she beamed, unaware I was memorizing her joy before I shattered it. We drove to the gallery in silence, her fidgeting with her purse, me gripping the wheel, my phone in my pocket, the trigger ready. The gallery was alive with Chicago's art elite. Critics, collectors, artists. Their voices a hum of anticipation. Marcus's photos lined the walls, each one a story, many bearing Clara's influence. She mingled effortlessly, her charm drawing smiles, while I lingered near the bar, a quiet observer. Marcus was the center of attention, his charisma magnetic, his glances at Clara subtle but unmistakable. I cataloged them, my engineer's mind noting every interaction, every laugh they shared. No one suspected the husband in the corner was about to detonate their world. The presentation was scheduled for 9 p.m., Marcus's moment to unveil his new series. Clara was to introduce him, a role she'd kept from me but couldn't hide now. As the clock neared, I positioned myself near the projection booth, my phone in hand. The crowd gathered, Clara stepping to the podium, her voice steady, praising Marcus's vision, their shared journey. The words were a knife, but I didn't flinch. I waited, my thumb hovering over the trigger, as Marcus joined her, his smile wide, the room applauding. The projector hummed to life Marcus's first image, a cityscape, filling the screen. The crowd murmured approval. I pressed the button. The screen flickered, and my slideshow began. A photo of Clara and Marcus in the park, her head on his shoulder, appeared, captioned, "Date, February 20th. Context, unauthorized meeting." Gasps rippled through the room. Another image. Their texts, her words, "I can't stop thinking about you." Clara's voice played, a voicemail to Marcus, soft and intimate. The crowd's murmurs turned to whispers, then silence, as image after image unfolded. Her sketches, their lake photo, the wedding picture last, its caption a quiet accusation. Clara froze, her face pale, her eyes darting to Marcus, then me. Marcus stammered, trying to speak, but the slideshow looped, relentless. The crowd shifted, some leaving, others staring, their phones already out, capturing the scandal. I stood still, my expression neutral, watching Clara's world collapse. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, but I didn't move. Marcus grabbed her arm, whispering something, but she pulled away, her composure crumbling. The gallery manager rushed to stop the projector, but the damage was done. The truth was out, a public wound. I slipped out, my role complete, as the chaos unfolded. Clara didn't follow. She couldn't, not with the crowd's eyes on her. I drove home, the city's lights blurring, my chest tight but not with regret. The slideshow was my bridge, built to carry the weight of my pain, and it had held. The social media posts would go live soon, the client emails tomorrow. This was just the beginning. Clara and Marcus thought they could rewrite our story, but I'd rewritten theirs instead. As I parked, my phone buzzed. A text from Clara, "Ethan, please." I didn't reply. The machine was still running and I wasn't done. I didn't sleep that night. The apartment was too quiet, Clara's absence a void I'd created. I sat at my desk, whiskey in hand, replaying the gallery in my mind. The crowd's shock, Clara's pale face, Marcus's futile scramble. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Clara's texts, then calls, then voicemails I didn't listen to. I ignored them, focusing on the next phase. The social media posts went live at midnight, the teaser image spreading across Chicago's art forums, tagged with Marcus's name and cryptic captions. By morning, the whispers would be a roar. I checked my laptop, the anonymous accounts buzzing with activity. Comments piled up. Is this real? Marcus hails a fraud. Who's the woman? Clara's name surfaced, her freelance profile linked, her reputation now tied to the scandal. The client emails sent at dawn, each one a precise strike to Marcus's business. I'd worded them carefully, professional, vague, but damning. Concerns about Mr. Hale's conduct have come to light. His bookings would dry up, his charm no match for doubt. My revenge wasn't loud, but it was deep, a slow poison seeping into their lives. Clara didn't come home. I didn't expect her to. The GPS showed her car at Marcus's studio, a choice that confirmed everything. She was clinging to him, not me, even after the gallery's collapse. That hurt, but it also sharpened my resolve. I spent the day cleaning the apartment, packing her sketchpads, her clothes, her mugs, small acts of erasure. I wasn't kicking her out. I was preparing for a life without her shadow. Each item I boxed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By afternoon, the art scene was ablaze. A local blog posted about the gallery, calling it a public implosion, speculating about Clara's role. Her freelance clients, small galleries, publishers, started emailing her. Their tones polite but distant, projects on hold. I saw it through her synced account, her inbox a graveyard of opportunities. Marcus's Instagram was flooded with questions, his comments disabled, his brand tarnished overnight. My slideshow had been a spark, but the fire was theirs to face. I'd built the machine and it was running flawlessly. I went for a drive, needing air, needing to see the city that held my wreckage. I passed the gallery, now quiet, a closed sign on the door. I passed Marcus's studio, Clara's car still there, and felt nothing. No rage, no triumph, just a hollow certainty. I'd always built things to last, but this time, I'd built something to destroy. At home, I found a note Clara had left days ago, a casual love you on a post-it. I crumpled it, the last lie I'd keep. Clara called again that evening, her voice raw in a voicemail I finally played. Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this. Can we talk? Her words were a plea, but they were too late. I didn't call back. Instead, I planned my final move, not another public strike, but something personal, something that would cut deeper than the gallery. I wanted Clara to face me, to see the man she'd broken, and to understand the cost of her choices. The slideshow had been for the world. This would be for us. I started drafting a letter, not to send but to read to her, a blueprint of my pain. The machine was slowing, but its final act was coming, and it would be the cruelest yet. 2 days after the gallery, Clara returned. I was in the kitchen, the apartment sterile with her things boxed in the corner, when I heard her key in the lock. She stepped inside, her face drawn, the blue dress replaced by jeans and a hoodie, her eyes red from crying. I didn't move, Didn't speak, just watched her stand there, a stranger in our home. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Can we talk?" I nodded, not out of mercy but because this was the moment I'd planned for, the final piece of my revenge. She sat across from me, her hands trembling, and started to explain. "Marcus was a mistake," she said, "a connection that got out of hand." She swore it wasn't physical, just emotional, artistic, a collaboration that filled a void she hadn't known was there. Her words were careful, rehearsed, but they crumbled under my gaze. I knew the truth. My evidence was ironclad, her lies transparent. I let her talk, her voice filling the silence, until she paused, waiting for me to respond. That's when I began. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I slid my laptop toward her, opening the folder labeled Bridge Specs. Her eyes widened as the slideshow played again, this time just for us. Every photo, every text, every sketch. She covered her mouth, tears spilling, but I kept going. I read the letter I'd written, my voice steady, each word a beam in the structure of her guilt. "You didn't just betray me," I said. "You erased me. You built a life with him, and you thought I wouldn't notice." I described the months of watching, the coffee shop, the lake, the studio, my pain a blueprint she couldn't ignore. Clara sobbed, tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "You don't get to speak yet." I told her about the gallery, the social media, the emails. Every step I'd taken to dismantle her world. I wanted her to feel the weight, to know I'd matched her secrecy with my own. "You thought you could live in two worlds," I said. "But I made sure you only have one now." Her career was faltering, Marcus's ruined, their art tainted. She stared at me, not as a husband but as a stranger, and that was my victory. I stood, placing a box of her things at her feet. "You can stay tonight," I said, "but tomorrow you're gone." She begged, her words a jumble of apologies, promises, but they were hollow. I saw her for what she was, not a villain, but a woman who'd chosen herself over us. I didn't forgive her. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't about forgiveness, it was about truth, about making her see the cost of her choices. I left her there, crying, and went to the guest room, locking the door. That night, I finalized the last detail. I'd donate her sketches of Marcus to a local art school, anonymously, with a note, "Studies in Betrayal." It was petty, perhaps, but it completed the circle. Clara would leave, her life fractured, her art a reminder of her choices. Marcus would fade, his career a shadow. And me? I'd rebuild, not with hate but with the clarity of a man who'd faced the truth and survived. The machine had done its work, and I was ready to walk away from the rubble. Clara slept on the couch that night, her sobs echoing through the apartment until dawn. I stayed in the guest room, my door locked, my mind replaying our confrontation. Her apologies, her excuses, they were scaffolding for a structure that had already collapsed. My letter to her, read aloud, had been the final blow, stripping away her defenses. Now, as morning broke, I prepared for the next phase, her departure. My revenge wasn't just the gallery or the social media, it was this, forcing her to live with the consequences, to carry the weight of her choices alone. I emerged to find her packing, her movements slow, her eyes avoiding mine. The boxes I'd filled with her things sat untouched. She was choosing what to take, a silent acknowledgement that she wouldn't return. "Ethan," she said, her voice hoarse, "I know I hurt you. I'll go. But please, can we talk later? After some time." I shook my head, my voice cold. "There's nothing left to say. You made your choice." She flinched, but I felt no satisfaction, only the need to see this through. I'd planned her exile with the same precision as the gallery. I'd contacted our landlord, arranging to remove Clara from the lease. I'd canceled her access to our joint accounts, redirecting funds to a new one she couldn't touch. Her freelance clients, already pulling away, would find her emails unanswered, her portfolio tainted by the scandal. Marcus's career was in free fall, his gallery bookings canceled, his social media a battleground of accusations. Clara had nowhere to go but to him, A fitting punishment, to rely on a man whose world I'd dismantled. She tried one last plea, clutching a sketch pad, its pages filled with her art, some of it ours from years ago. This was us, Ethan. Doesn't it mean anything? I looked at the drawings. Our old life, our laughter, and felt a pang, but it was fleeting. It meant everything, I said. Until you gave it to him. I handed her the pad, my gesture final. She packed it, her shoulders sagging, and by noon, she was gone, her car loaded, the GPS tracker I'd left on it pinging Marcus's address. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. The apartment felt hollow, but I didn't mourn. I spent the day erasing her traces, her mugs to charity, her sketches to the art school with my anonymous note. The donation was my final jab, ensuring her work with Marcus would be seen as a cautionary tale. Online, the scandal grew, art blogs dissecting the gallery meltdown. Clara's name a footnote to Marcus's fall. I monitored it, not with glee but with the satisfaction of a job complete. My machine had worked, its gears grinding their lives to dust. That evening, I sat with a whiskey, the city's skyline a backdrop to my thoughts. Revenge had been my bridge, carrying me from betrayal to clarity. But now I stood on the other side, alone. Clara was gone, Marcus broken, but I wasn't free. Not yet. The cruelty of my plan had cost me something, a piece of the man I'd been. I didn't regret it, but I knew the next step was mine to build. A life without her shadow, without the weight of this pain. I poured another drink, ready to begin. The days after Clara's departure were a strange limbo. The apartment too quiet, my routines unmoored. I went to work, calculated beams, met deadlines, but my mind was elsewhere, tracking the ripples of my revenge. The art scene hadn't forgotten the gallery. It was a scandal that fed on itself, each blog post and tweet amplifying the damage. Marcus's name was poisoned now, his upcoming shows canceled, his clients silent. Clara's freelance career was a ghost, her website dormant, her inbox empty. I checked her synced accounts, not out of obsession but to confirm the structure held. It did. I'd expected relief, but what came was a hollow ache. My plan had been perfect, a demolition executed with an engineer's precision, but it hadn't rebuilt what Clara broke. I found myself wandering our apartment, seeing her in every corner. Her laugh over coffee, her sketches on the fridge. I didn't miss her, not exactly. I missed the life I'd thought we had, the trust I'd poured into it. My revenge had balanced the scales, but it hadn't filled the void. I needed to move forward, to design something new. I started small, reclaiming the space. I repainted the walls, a crisp white to erase her colors. I sold our old furniture, bought a new desk, turned the guest room into a study. Each change was a step, a way to anchor myself. At work, I took on bigger projects, my focus sharpening, my colleagues noting my drive. "You're different," one said, and I nodded, not explaining. Different was the point. I was rebuilding not just my home but the man I'd become. The art school donation landed, my anonymous note sparking a small stir. A professor posted about the sketches online, calling them a study in human complexity, unaware of their context. Clara's name surfaced, tied to the betrayal, and the comments speculated wildly. I didn't engage, but I read them, a reminder of the permanence of my work. Marcus tried to salvage his reputation, posting a vague apology online, but it backfired, the art community tearing into him. Clara stayed silent, her social media dark, her presence a whisper. I heard from a mutual friend that Clara was living with Marcus, their relationship strained under the scandal's weight. The friend asked if I was okay, her tone cautious, and I said I was, my voice steady. I didn't mention the tracker, still pinging Marcus's address, or the satisfaction of knowing Clara's new life was a shadow of her old one. My revenge had been cruel, yes, but it was fair. She'd chosen him, and now she'd live with the ruins. One night, I found an old photo of us, tucked in a book. We were young, laughing, the future bright. I didn't cry. I studied it like an engineer analyzing a failed design. The flaw wasn't in the structure but in the materials, her commitment, my blindness. I burned the the flames a quiet ritual, and felt lighter. The ripples of my revenge were still spreading, but I was done watching them. I had a life to build, one that didn't rely on her absence or her pain. I opened my laptop, started sketching a new project. Not a bridge, not a trap, but a home, a place for the man I was becoming. The past was rubble and I was ready to clear it. A month after Clara left, the echoes of my revenge took an unexpected turn. I'd thought the scandal would fade, a fire that burned out once the fuel was gone. But Chicago's art scene was relentless. A local journalist, sniffing a story, dug into the gallery incident, publishing a piece titled, "The Art of Betrayal." It didn't name me, but it detailed Clara and Marcus's relationship, using my slideshow as evidence, pieced together from social media leaks. The article went viral, shared across platforms, and suddenly, my private revenge was a public spectacle. I read it at my desk, the city's hum outside my window, my pulse steady but my mind racing. The journalist painted Clara as a talented but reckless artist, Marcus as a charismatic opportunist. Their collaboration a tragic muse narrative. My role was a shadow, the wronged husband a footnote, which suited me. I didn't want fame, I wanted impact. The article did that, reigniting scrutiny. Marcus's last client dropped him, and Clara's name became a cautionary tale in art circles. My machine, long since powered down, was still working. I didn't gloat. The article stirred something else, a flicker of doubt. Had I gone too far? My goal was justice, not destruction, but the line blurred as I saw the fallout. Clara's social media stayed silent, but the tracker showed her car moving erratically. Hotels, then a friend's place, then back to Marcus's. Their world was fracturing further, and while I'd planned for that, seeing it unfold felt heavier than I'd expected. I wasn't a monster, but I'd built something monstrous, and its shadow lingered. I countered the doubt with action. I joined a gym, started running, my body a new project to shape. I reconnected with old friends, their laughter a balm, though I never spoke of Clara. At work, I pitched a community center design, pouring my energy into creation, not destruction. The architect in me thrived, finding stability in plans, in measurable outcomes. But at night, alone, the article's words haunted me. A betrayal that broke more than a marriage. I wondered what Clara was feeling, if she hated me, if she understood why I'd done it. Then came a letter, slipped under my door, no return address. Clara's handwriting. I hesitated, my engineer's mind warning against opening it, but I did. It was brief, raw. I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't ask you to. I'm sorry, Ethan, for everything. I'm trying to rebuild, but it's hard. I hope you're okay. No plea, no excuses, just a glimpse of her pain. I read it twice, then filed it away, unready to respond. It wasn't closure. It was a crack in my certainty, a reminder that revenge, however precise, leaves scars on everyone. I burned her letter as I had the photo, but this time the ritual felt incomplete. The article, the letter, the tracker's pings, they were echoes of a plan I couldn't fully escape. I decided to end one piece of it. I removed the tracker from her car remotely, severing my last tie to her movements. It was a small act, but it freed something in me. My revenge had been cruel, yes, but it was done. The echoes would fade, and I'd build over them. A new structure, one that didn't rely on her ruin or my pain. I opened my sketchpad, drew the community center's outline, and felt the first stirrings of peace. 6 months after the gallery, I was a man remade, or at least in progress. The apartment was mine now, not ours, new furniture, new colors, a space that didn't echo Clara. My community center project was greenlit, my days filled with blueprints, meetings, purpose. I ran every morning, my body leaner, my mind clearer. Friends noticed, called me focused, and I smiled, letting them think it was ambition, not survival. The scandal had faded from public view, but its lessons shaped me, a foundation I built on daily. I hadn't heard from Clara since her letter, though the tracker's final ping, before I disabled it, showed her leaving Chicago. Marcus's online presence was a ghost, his website down, his name absent from art circles. I didn't check anymore. I didn't need to. My revenge had done its work, dismantling their world as I'd planned. But the cost lingered, not in guilt but in clarity. Cruelty, even justified, changes you. I wasn't the Ethan who'd loved Clara, nor the one who'd destroyed her. I was something new, and I was learning what that meant. I started dating cautiously. A colleague, Sarah, invited me to coffee, her smile warm, her questions gentle. I went not expecting much but found myself talking about my work, my runs, not Clara. Sarah listened, her laugh easy, and for the first time in months, I felt possibility. We saw each other again, then again, each date a step away from the past. I didn't tell her about the gallery, the slideshow, the man I'd been. That story was a vault, locked, its key buried. The art school contacted me, unaware I was the donor, inviting me to a student exhibit featuring Clara's sketches. I went, curious, my presence anonymous. The sketches were displayed, labeled Anonymous Gift, Studies in Trust. My notes intent preserved. Students milled around, discussing the lines, the emotion, not the scandal. I stood before one. A sketch of Marcus, her strokes tender, and felt nothing, not anger, not pain. It was just art now, detached from me. I left, the weight lighter than I'd expected. One night, I found an old sketch of Clara's, hidden in a book. A drawing of me, from our early days, my smile soft. I didn't burn it. I framed it, hung it in my study, not as a shrine but as a reminder. I'd loved, I'd lost, I'd survived. The cruelty of my revenge had been necessary, but it wasn't my legacy. My legacy was the community center, the runs, the coffee with Sarah, the man I was building. I was no longer defined by Clara's betrayal or my response to it. I wrote Clara a letter, not to send but to close the loop. You broke us, I wrote, but I broke you back. I don't regret it, but I'm done carrying it. Be well. I filed it away, a final act of release. The machine I'd built was dismantled. Its purpose served. I looked at my community center plans, the lines clean, the structure sound. It was a blueprint for more than a building. It was my life, my future, a design I'd pour myself into. I turned off the light, the city quiet outside, and slept, dreaming of foundations, not ruins. A year after the gallery, I stood at the groundbreaking for the community center, my design made real. The crowd was small. Local officials, colleagues, Sarah by my side, her hand in mine. The shovel broke earth, and I felt it, a moment of creation that outweighed destruction. My life was no longer about Clara, Marcus, or the slideshow. It was about this, building something lasting, something that served others, not just my pain. The applause was soft, but it was enough. I hadn't seen Clara since she left, hadn't heard from her since her letter. Rumors placed her in New York, starting over, her art quieter, her name untarnished by Chicago's gossip. Marcus had vanished, his career a footnote, his charisma no match for the truth I'd exposed. I didn't wish them ill. I didn't wish them anything. They were ghosts, their role in my story over. My revenge had been cruel, yes, but it was precise, a machine that did its job and stopped. I'd moved on, not with forgiveness but with indifference, the truest freedom. Sarah and I were steady now, not a whirlwind but a rhythm. She knew pieces of my past, enough to understand my silences, not enough to carry my scars. We cooked together, ran together, planned a trip to the coast. She was a partner, not a muse, and that suited me. My engineer's mind, once obsessed with flaws, now sought balance, connection. I was learning to trust again, not blindly but deliberately, testing the beams before I leaned on them. The community center grew, its frame rising against the skyline. I visited the site weekly, watching concrete pour, steel rise, my vision taking shape. It was more than a job. It was redemption, proof I could create without destroying. The art school exhibit had toured, Clara's sketches gaining quiet praise, detached from the scandal. I was glad, not for her but for the art, for the idea that beauty could outlive betrayal. I didn't attend the tours, didn't need to. My closure was here, in the dirt, in the plans. One evening, Sarah found the framed sketch of me in my study. "This is beautiful," she said, tracing the lines. I told her it was old, from another life, and she nodded, not pressing. I realized then how far I'd come, not just from Clara, but from the man who'd built the slideshow, who'd burned photos, who'd lived for revenge. That man was a phase, a necessary one, but not me. I was Ethan, the architect, the runner, the partner, the builder of something new. As the center neared completion, I stood alone at the site, the city's lights flickering. I thought of Clara, briefly, not with anger but with distance. Her betrayal had been my crucible, forging me into this stronger, clearer whole. My revenge had been cruel, but it was also my bridge, carrying me to this moment. I didn't need to look back. The structure before me was sound, its purpose true. I turned away, Sarah waiting at home, the future waiting beyond. I walked into it, my steps steady, my heart unburdened, ready to live in the world I'd built, not the one I'd burned.